Good afternoon. This is Jana Benoon and Steve Benoon, and we have in our studio today Sofia Smallstorm. Sofia is an investigative journalist, mainly in the area of science, health, environment, and today she is coming with us to discuss very troubling subjects. Friends, it's going to be about vaccines, upcoming vaccines, and we will discuss something called human capital market. Welcome, Sophia.
Well,
Thank you.
before we
Ooh,
bring, so I'm sorry. Also, listen just for because not everybody goes through the entire video, and you'll miss some more important things as well. Sophia's website, sophiasmallstorm.com, and of course, Sophia does a tremendous line of good products for natural health. Avatarproducts.com. We'll bring that up at the end, and also that'll be down in the description below.
All right, well, welcome, Sophia.
thank you, Jana and Steve. It's always lovely to hear your voice, Jana, and to hear some of Steve's miserable jokes.
No kidding. Now try to live with him 24/7. But anyway, Sophia.
Boy, I tell you what. I'm digging out. Hold on.
Okay, Sophia, well, we discussed together when we talked off air here upcoming vaccines, and you have done some deeper research into the vaccines, what they contain, and how they're going to be given to people. And this is a very troubling information. So I'm sorry, friends, if this sounds depressing, but I think we need to know the truth about what these vaccines are about. Sophia, can you please present your findings to us?
Okay, so the vaccines, you're familiar with the company Moderna, right?
Yes, we are.
And they have one of the vaccine development contracts, and they are stating that the vaccines they're making are software of life vaccines. Okay, so these are not truly vaccinations in the conventional sense. They are methods by which your genome is changed. So they're gene altering substances that are going to be injected into you in a very novel way. So this software of life, the mRNA vaccines, Moderna also calls them mRNA medicines. So messenger RNA. So we have in the cell DNA, right? DNA is I call it biointelligence.
Right.
So if you look at my blog, sophiasmallstorm.com, I have posted a diagram that actually comes from a wonderful blog called Wrench in the Gears, WRENCH, wrenchinthegears.com. This is Alison McDowell's website, and I'm learning a lot from her. Hope to make contact with her soon. She is a very, very deep researcher, and she has posted a lot on her blog what I'm going to talk about today. So let's break it down. This diagram will show you in very simple graphics, you have to scroll down for it, that DNA stores instructions for proteins in the nucleus of the cell. So DNA is found in the nucleus. We know it as a double helix squiggle, right? And it stores instructions for proteins. Okay? So then the diagram shows a single squiggle, that's RNA. So DNA is deoxyribonucleic acid, RNA is ribonucleic acid. And this is explained as software. mRNA is a temporary set of instructions for cells to make protein. So mRNA is the instructions, DNA is the vault that stores these instructions. And then proteins, the diagram will show you, are the applications. So proteins we know to be the workhorses of the body. They form the basis of life by performing the functions of every cell. Proteins transport their structural components, and proteins are made by way of mRNA. So I'll go over it again. Proteins made from mRNA are the workers of the body, mRNA made from DNA is the code to make the proteins, and DNA holds this biointelligence. So this is where they are saying that mRNA is the software of life because it's the instructions on how to make the proteins. So this vaccination is a triple needle electroporation vaccination method. So we all know how afraid we are of one needle, right? Come
Yeah.
at a little kid with a needle and he'll scream. Now we've got 3 needles at once, not one after another, together. So you picture this thing with a central needle that's attached to the hypodermic, and that delivers the contents of the syringe. And then on either side, the flanking needles are electrodes. So while you get pierced, you're getting current or voltage going into your body at the same time, right?
Right. And what's the purpose for voltage?
Well, the researcher Martin Pall, P-A-L-L, introduced us a year or two ago to the concept of voltage-gated openings, pores on the cell. So this is called electroporation. So Martin Pall revealed from his research that when radio frequencies hit your cells, they open the voltage-gated calcium channels, the voltage-gated channels. So we know that when voltage hits the cell, those things open up, right?
Right. So
This vaccination is putting current to make your cells even more receptive to what's coming in.
wow. So they basically want to make sure it will get into your cells. They don't want to take any chance that your body will reject it. Is that what it is?
Well, a while ago, Jana, I learned about IgT, immunoprophylaxis by gene transfer. And this is a concept in science, medical research, that they consider a great innovation. So we know from our conventional body of study that it's the white blood cells that make the antibodies that are,
Right.
found in your bloodstream. And antibodies are part of Th2 immune response. So that's the humoral immune system, the Th2 immune system. So what they want to do now is to prod your muscle cells into making antibodies rather than your blood cells. Now, why is that? Well, we're told that vaccines are injected, and we think they go directly into the bloodstream. But no, they actually inject vaccines into your muscle tissue first. So your deltoid in your arm or your gluteus in your butt, sometimes in the thigh they'll give it. So the first tissues to receive the vaccination payload, which is the vaccine, are the muscle tissues. And then the capillaries, which are the smallest of the circulatory system, the smallest channels that surround the muscle tissues and feed them the oxygenated blood and remove the waste materials, those capillaries eventually absorb what the muscle cells have taken in. So now, I don't know why exactly, but they want to get the muscle cells to produce the antibodies. And this is called immunoprophylaxis by gene transfer. They're going to change the genetic instructions in your body. So that came out a couple of years ago. And these mRNA vaccines are an instruction-carrying code, right?
Right.
So another thing that I just found out, now this has to do with the electroporation, the use of the electricity. Remember, Jana, when I did an interview with you, possibly, and I've done it with lots of other people, and I talked about tobacco mosaic virus, right?
I think you did, yes. Mm-hmm.
So a scientist from Russia, he's called the father of virology, Dmitry Ivanovsky. This is in the late 1800s. He was the first person to discover the first named virus. I believe he named it tobacco mosaic virus. Tobacco plant is a very interesting plant. It has a long history. It's like the Superman of plants in the plant world. But regardless, what tobacco plants develop, along with tomato plants and eggplant and orchids and cucumbers is what's called spot disease. So these little spots appear on the leaves, and the leaves get all crinkly and dried up. Now, spot disease doesn't kill the plant, but it's just this dark material in spots that develops on the leaves. So Ivanovsky studied this, and he also saw this under his microscope. He did not have any electron microscope or any such thing, okay? But he visualized this under the microscope and studied it in 1898, named it, and then when they got the electron microscope, TMV, tobacco mosaic virus, was the first virus to be viewed under the electron microscope. Now, they also found that it was a self-assembling protein structure. And they also saw that because it self-assembles, it was useful in genetic manipulation. So TMV has played a critical role in the development of vaccines. It's considered a plant-based vaccine, and it is, I call it a vaccine-based tobacco mosaic virus. One of the most interesting things, if you look this up on Wikipedia, and because I've talked about this so many times, I am worried they're going to take it off. But at the bottom of the tobacco mosaic virus page on Wikipedia, it talks about industrial applications, other uses, and it says that when you transfer this gunk, I'll call it, that they speak of as a virus, this spot disease material, onto battery electrodes, it amplifies, it increases the capacity of the battery 6 times. So that told me it's highly bioelectrical, right?
Right.
So if you look at any virus structure, whether you want to call them exosomes or viruses, they're pointy. Viruses are crystalline proteins. They are proteins, okay, with crystal materials in them, which makes them, in my opinion, piezoelectric. They're sharp, pointed. They rove through the bloodstream. The conventional material will tell you they attach to the surface of red blood cells. This is called hemagglutination. And therefore, they become carried by red blood. I believe, as many other people are beginning to believe, that viruses are healing agents. And so what they found in tobacco mosaic virus was a highly bioelectrical, self-assembling protein structure. And they decided that the physical attributes of the virions in TMV, virions are the particles that transmit nucleic acid genome, all right? So TMV has become a super duper material to be used in the making of vaccines because it's extremely bioelectrical. It self-assembles and it transmits directions, okay?
So you basically, to understand that, are they culturing this?
Yes.
Okay.
They are genetically modifying and culturing masses of TMV. So tobacco mosaic, let's call it substance, let's not call it virus, is produced at large scale in tobacco plants. They say it's a safe, non-infectious, excellent antigen delivery. So they are using what they have created, TMV pseudovirus. They're genetically modifying this and creating it in labs. And guess who has the contract to make tons of this base material for the COVID vaccine? British American Tobacco.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, never would enter my mind, huh?
Yes.
Isn't that interesting?
Now, there's background information. If you study some of the names in the development of BAT, British American Tobacco's research, you will find an Alison McCormick. You will find a link to Touro University, that's where she is now. This is a Judaic values institution.
Judaic Values Institution.
Yes.
Interesting.
You'll find a link to Kenneth Palmer, and he comes from Kentucky Bioprocessing. This is a subsidiary of British American Tobacco. You will find threads that link you to the South African Rupert family, and that was a wine and liquor patriarchal family in business with the Rothschilds. So
doesn't surprise me.
It doesn't, does it? Right. So this is some background. But what's very interesting is that this electroporation vaccination method, as Catherine Austin Fitts has written in certain essays that she's released and interviews recently, this is not conventional vaccination. It's not, vaccination, if you're a fan of it or not, is roughly, loosely considered to be some kind of medical preventive measure, whether it works or not. But it's considered medicine. But what's going into us now is, they tell us themselves, Moderna, it's software, yeah?
Right.
The software of life.
Okay, they're rewriting genetic code.
Exactly.
This is very dangerous. They're messing with our biology, with our life. Okay, well, listen, when you were on this other interview with someone, and I forgot their names, they were like two gentlemen that had interviewed with you.
Yes.
One of them was saying that they are also putting in vaccines some substance that will sterilize boys or men and shrink testicles, and that the long-term effect of this will be that if the man who was vaccinated has sex in the future with female that was not vaccinated, that he's going to actually make her sterile.
I have not done research on that, Jana. You've just quoted what somebody else said on a show I did, and that's as much as I know about it. Yeah.
Okay, so I just wondered, because I was listening to your show and he did say that, and I was trying to find this information. I mean, that shocked me. So do you think that these after effects of vaccines, which I believe are for the genocide, I'm just going by what they tell us. Rothschild documents, Rockefeller documents. I'm looking at Georgia Guidestones. I actually visited them a few years ago, and I read for myself. They want to reduce population, right? We know Agenda 2030, Sustainable Development Agenda. They don't need humans anymore. So as far as after effects, do you think that this is going to have a horrendous effects on our health?
Well, it's changing us. What they're interested in humans, Jana, to the extent that they can change them, and change them in very profound ways. Take out the individuality, take out the creativity, take out the immune resilience, okay, that we come equipped with. We have a very good pharmacological stockhouse in our bodies, and it works very, very well, and our cells intercommunicate, they are cooperative, and for instance, glyphosate destroys that intercellular cooperation because it wipes out the gap junctions that connect cells to one another. And this is how cells talk. This is how cells ask. Sick cells ask healthy cells for exosomes. They say, send me something. I already made endosomes. That's the first stage of inflammatory response. And my endosomes didn't clean up damage that's going on in me. Now I need something from you. Make me an exosome. And this is what viruses are. Viruses are identical to what's called exosomes in biology. Other cells make them, send them in the bloodstream where they attach to the surface of red blood cells. It all fits together, and they come to the ailing cells. In my opinion, this is my opinion, they bump with their sharp crystal points against the sick cell's membrane, which opens up those voltage-gated channels. The viruses slip in, and they confer electrons, what's called free electrons, because they're bioelectrical. And that's what they found in tobacco mosaic virus. And because it's so bioelectrically active, they've now included it in the manufacturing of their vaccine materials, because vaccines will attach and deliver their software through bioelectricity. I mean, is that not how a computer works?
Right. Yes. Wow. That, it's just, and we don't know yet what kind of effects it's gonna have. I think that old people, immunodepressed people, very small children, I think that's going to be really dangerous for them. And then, of course, I'm afraid of autoimmune responses in people's bodies to this. What do you
Well,
think?
well, Jana, they may know how we're going to respond. I mean, they have been studying things to an extent that we could never comprehend, because that's what they do. I mean, who among normal people in the 1930s and 40s ever looked through an electron microscope?
Right.
Electron microscopes are extremely expensive. Very few entities possess them. But these research facilities now, with Rothschild money behind them, and they are doing amazing quantities of work constantly, and they are seeing how to rebuild the biological natural software, how to mix into it their created software, and they're calling this the software of life. They're calling it that. They're not hiding from us what they can do. So what this coronavirus is a financial reset mechanism, right?
Yeah. That's
And
it.
I have to just slip in here that the masks are not about preventing, droplets from flying through the air and reaching a person and infecting them. The masks are to train AI to tell us apart besides looking at our faces. So our faces are covered up now. And AI is good, but it's already mastered facial recognition. Now it has to be trained in non-facial characteristics. So Jana, how she walks, how she's shaped, how she swings her arms, what color her hair is, stuff like this, behavior. And they have made us cover our faces and stand 6 feet apart so that we're separated, so that AI can do a good read on each of us as we move through the quote-unquote public world, and its sensors are trained on us. So that's the reason I learned recently, really, 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 beyond the ritual initiation stuff of slaves wearing the mask, saying I have nothing to say, the compliance statement that it makes. It's to train AI. And on the same show that you listened to, that you spoke of recently, just minutes ago, David, one of the hosts, said that he has learned that we're going to be wearing masks for 5 years. So this tells me they're really polishing up AI's ability to recognize us without our faces.
Oh my goodness. This is completely insane, Sophia. So basically, okay, so AI is observing us and we are feeding it.
Right. And
Yeah.
so, because there's a whole economic restructuring going on, now the uber rich are bored. Too many of us have fallen behind on our loans. We are deep in debt. And the uber rich have said, all right, well, we made commodities and products out of their loans and their mortgages, and that didn't work that well. But now we're going to make commodities out of them. So this is where the human capital investment market comes in. On its face, it sounds good. And for years now, we've been treated to all this therapy stuff about, interventions that help people rebuild their lives, that experts will work with you, and there are foundations and all these do-good fake foundations out there. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is an example of that. A lot of people believe, they want to, they're all about education, they're about health, they're about many things, global improvement that you and I know not to be improvements at all. So the human capital markets are based on data. And this is really the crux of what Alison McDowell talks about, wrenchinthegears.com. All right, so I'm going to quote from her blog. Human capital data markets are arising for reasons of political economy. As the fourth industrial revolution dawns, that's where we are now, fourth industrial revolution, thanks to the COVID reset, the elite must have a new mechanism to circulate their concentrated capital. The spending of poor and working class people will not be sufficient. Folks are carrying way too much debt as it is. This will become an even greater problem once automation and mass migrations make it impossible for millions of people to earn a stable living. Simply put, the financiers need new plumbing. So what's happening is, because we have more robotics, more technology, and this is all part of the technocratic evolution of not just government, but the way we live, right? You're aware of the word technocracy, right?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay. So McDowell tells us that human capital investing is not about raising our knowledge, skills, productivity, earning potential, self-worth. This is what the NGOs and these foundations make it sound like. It centers on our demonstrations of compliance. And so these are investments that are being created that are focused on human beings, human behavior, called pay for success. So a yield is generated when a series of behaviors is deemed a success. So let's say you've got a homeless guy lying in the street drinking, whatever it's called, Thunderbird, throwing broken bottles in the gutter. So some social group finds him and says, look, here's a free phone. Now we want you to go to Target and take this little money, a voucher, and get some clean pants. Go buy some Granny Smith apples and wash your face. And when you've done those three things, punch in on this phone that you've done them. So gradually they're going to reshape the way people behave. They're going to give us options. They're going to dribble payments into our cryptocurrency account, our Bitcoin, just pennies. For the homeless man, he'll get little pennies in his Bitcoin account. And when he becomes a clean, compliant, new age, Agenda 2030 slave, the hidden impact investors will get a nice payment from some foundation.
Okay, so this is the meaning of human capital market. Wow.
Right.
They're basically taking our own soul, our own individuality away.
Making a commodity out of it.
Making a commodity out of humans.
Right. So now with the technocracy, the technology taking over in manufacturing and in service industries and blah, 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 you've got a surplus of labor. You've got people who don't have anything to do. So what McDowell explains, and it took me days of reading her blog to separate it into these very basic concepts. You've got too much labor, so you might as well turn that labor population into oppressors and oppressed.
Oh my God.
You might as well make a Hunger Games out of it.
That's it. You named it. It's Hunger Games. They're going to have fun.
Right. So this is a technologic system. Total compliance will be demanded. Now I'm going to read from her blog. Approved behavior becomes currency, tokenized on a blockchain, and monitored by sensors and AI. This is why AI has to be trained to see us besides just our faces. They are training us for a future where we compete with one another to see who is the best behaved, the most docile. Surviving will mean conforming to the strident terms of psychopathic financial arrangements. All of your data will be added to your permanent record to evaluate your value as human capital for investor portfolios. The billionaires envision a future where freedom is a privilege limited to them, their functionaries, and the robots they control. Be assured AI is already keeping tabs and social credit scoring is well underway. So the word functionaries, those will be the guys that oppress us. And they will do it because they get a modicum of freedoms, and they get a paycheck, and they're taken care of.
That is Can you imagine what all they can make us do? Like, look, they make us do insane things like wear the mask that makes no scientific sense, right? None,
Yes.
none, zero. Anybody who is a thinking human being understands that how they require of you a mask when you, let's say you go to a restaurant now, right? They tell you must enter with the mask, but few feet down you can take it off because you gotta eat, right? So makes no sense. None.
No, and it's not about sense. They've got to train AI, and they're willing to let AI rest while you eat, because then you need to be kept alive, so then you can put your mask on again and keep training AI, right?
Right.
So now the perps are very interested in children. This is where it becomes really heart-rending. Not just in profiling them, and they will profile unborn children have been put on the blockchain in Tanzania to track the prenatal health care choices that their mothers make. So there are unique identifiers given to children in utero. And the technology with that data gathering that the perps want so much will be able to make predictions about a child based on where it's born, its parents' income, their education, and even trauma scores. And this is the scariest part of all. And let's not forget to talk about that in a little while. So the impact investors, now you understand, impact investing is tied to pay for success investments. So they will profile you. They will say, this little baby, is it destined to become a burden to society or a success? And you know, they have their own definition for what a burden is and success. And they can, through prompting you by the apps on your phone, as they dribble rewards in cryptocurrency into your lousy little Bitcoin account, they can prompt you to become a certain type of person that follows certain behaviors, adopts certain behaviors, right?
Right.
So they train you. This is called prenatal healthcare impact, early childhood education impact, nutrition impact, character training impact, workforce training impact, preventive health impact, behavioral health impact. So the impact chain that they've created is called the human value chain. It has all different types of phases to it that kind of are sequentially laid out through your life. As subjects, this is my own wording from my newsletter, as subjects make the right moves on the life chessboard, and these moves are accurately predicted, there are payoffs. So it's like, selling stocks short and long. You have to predict what this person is going to do. And if you predict correctly, you get a big payoff.
So
And if you predict incorrectly, then you don't get paid.
so they're
that's the pay
basically
for
like
success.
betting on us.
Yes, betting on us.
This is absolute psychopathic insanity. I use this word a lot now because everything that's happening is a forceful transition to this. I don't know what to call it, but we're basically losing our individuality and becoming mindless slaves. And
Right.
if you look around, you can see your neighbors and everybody around you, right? There's few awakened individuals, but most people around you are just cooperating with anything and don't ask questions. Why? It doesn't make sense, but they don't ask questions.
Right, because that's what, we already have figured out, that it's about compliance. The more compliant you are, the more rewards you'll get. You'll get your little dog treats. You'll get a nice soft bed by the fireplace. As long as you know not to bark, and when you're told sit, you sit. Now, they're going to have lifestyle interventions. There's enormous numbers of programs with billions of dollars behind them that are following especially children and school children. So the lifestyle interventions will be offered to improve our odds in these increasingly toxic and treacherous environments that the COVID conditions create around us, okay? So we are being modified by way of our behavior. And now I'm going to get into what Google calls the self-ledger. So, Jana and Steve, your behavior, Steve's lousy little jokes,
What? Come on.
and
You know
Jana's
you like them.
deep caring for humanity is not considered yours by Google, and it's not limited to your lifetime. Your behavior is a legacy you leave to be studied to benefit future generations. Okay, so when we use contemporary technology, I'm going to read from the Google video that's on my blog. It's called the Self-Ledger. When we use contemporary technology, a trail of information is created in the form of data. When analyzed, it describes our actions, decisions, preferences, movements, and relationships. This codified version of who we are becomes ever more complex, developing, changing, and deforming based on our actions.
Okay.
This ledger of our data may be considered a Lamarckian epigenome. They're drawing from the French biologist Jean-Baptiste Lamarck, an explorer of evolution. So whether he was correct or not doesn't matter. They call it Lamarckian epigenome, a constantly evolving representation of who we are. So the video says that the individual organism, that's you, that's me, that's Steve, that's your dog, your cat, is a transient carrier, a survival machine for future generations. Your behavioral history, even though you decided it, is a carrier for something that's a lot bigger than you. So, I'm going to read from Google again. What if we thought of ourselves not as the owners of this information? So your behavioral record is your personal information, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as custodians or caretakers of this information. So now Google wants a goal-oriented ledger. So the ledger is this cloud thing, let's say, that's contained in your phone or linked to you through your phone. And every single damn thing you do, you're going to punch into your phone. I just bought a green apple because it came up on my, app. Why don't you have a green apple now? So you eat a green apple and you punch into your ledger that you just did that. And Google will offer suitable targets for your ledger. Let's say your ledger says, I was a slob lying in the gutter drinking Thunderbird, throwing broken bottles around me. Now I want to be a middle management, admin person at a small company, right? That's your goal for your ledger. So how are you going to get there? You're going to be prompted to do this thing and then this thing and then this thing, and gradually you change. So once the user selects a volition for their ledger, every interaction may be compared to a series of parallel options. Like let's say the bum says, I really need some more Thunderbird. I'm addicted. I got to have one sip. I'm going to the 7-Eleven and I'm going to use my voucher that was for green apples. I'm going to use it on Thunderbird. And then the ledger says, no, maybe you don't want to do that because you won't get bitcoins if you do that. So the bum says, oh, that's right. I'm going to get richer with Bitcoin, so I better not. I'll go have a green apple. So Google will prompt you on your options. It'll say, here's a parallel option. Don't you want to do this instead? And that's how your behavior becomes modified, and you move from being the bum to the middle-level management guy, and your ledger moves closer to its target.
Okay, so behavior modification, we are losing who we are, our own self, basically. It's they must think very lowly about us as humans, but I mean, they have us categorized as animals that need to be processed and managed. So I guess that's what they're about to do, yeah.
I would think that the reason why that's the case is because in reality, if these governments, as it's been said to me on multiple occasions, they're working with aliens, fallen demons, whatever people want to call them. But if that's the case, they do look at you as less than human. But then again, that's also the case with Orthodoxy as well. Gentiles are considered less than human.
Yeah. So, but anyway, in the Rockefeller Rothschild documents that we went through, they're considering Homo sapiens sapiens species that are animalistic. They're animals. They need to be managed. They need to be processed. They need to be taught. They're stupid. They cost a lot of money. So it's not good for their new model anymore. So they need to change us. Well, first of all, depopulate us, then change us into whatever they need us to be, right?
Exactly, exactly. And that's where this self-ledger comes in with a direction that you give it and that Google helps you give it. Google will make suggestions. Well, don't you
Yeah.
want to become this?
Yeah.
So they say in their narrative to this video, it's like a 10-minute video or something, user data has the capability to survive beyond our biological selves. So by thinking of user data is what you do as you punch it into your free phone and you get dribbles of Bitcoin, right?
Mm-hmm.
So user data is multi-generational. And by thinking of it in those terms, it becomes possible for emerging users, that's your descendants,
Mm-hmm.
to benefit from the preceding generation's behaviors and decisions. As new users enter an ecosystem, they create their own trail of data. By comparing this emergent ledger, the new one, with the mass of historical user data, one can make increasingly accurate predictions about decisions and future behaviors. As cycles of collection and comparison extend, we may develop a species understanding of complex issues such as depression, health, and poverty. And those are the things they want to really focus on. And they're going to be babbling with their fake smiles about, oh, let's help you get out of depression. Let's help you improve your health. Let's get you out of poverty. And this is called managed poverty, because you never want a real success. You don't want a real transformation, because then the victim pool will go away and you won't have any more financial gains.
Oh, it reminds me, manage diabetes,
That's
manage
right.
diseases, constant, constant customers, manage diabetes, right?
Right. So with the mRNA vaccines, the software of life, we've learned how to change human genetic coding. Now we're working on human behavior.
Okay. Well, this I cannot even explain to you, Sophia, how many people will fall for this. They will actually think their lives are improving.
That's right.
Yes, not for me. This is not for me. I can tell you right now. I want to be myself. I want to make my own decisions for improvements of my own life. I don't need any AI or Google. But it almost sounds like AI is God, like it's going to be this God that will direct your steps. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well,
So,
that's what technocracy wants. Technocracy is government by skill, and they've decided that government by human beings is fraught with problems, because human beings are emotional, politicians have affairs, and they make the wrong choices, and they have too much to drink, and they make mistakes, and if you get a good data substrate put together, then science can make correct predictions. Science can make the decisions. It has no emotion. And science can tell you where you need to go by sorting through all that data and predicting paths for us that we couldn't see ourselves.
so if you are not manageable with this method, if you stay too much self-aware and self-managed, they probably will mark you for elimination.
Well, they'll have fun betting on you. They'll say, all right, now do we think Jana is going to go to the store as we prompted her and buy a big bag of lab-created meat for her children?
Oh my gosh.
And then some investors will say, no, she's not going to do that for 3 more years. So now is the fun time for them, because there are people that they can actually make wild or safe predictions on.
Okay, so let's go back to vaccines. Do you think they're going to be mandatory? Of course, this is what they're talking about. It's going to be, Yale University is now studying how to persuade Americans to take vaccines. They're studying this persuasion methods.
Right. And
And
Mercola just put an article up today in his newsletter, and it was about how the state of Virginia is going to insist that even if you're doing online education for your children, they still have to be vaccinated, even though they're not near other children, and the whole idea of contamination is basically solved there. But what I want people to understand is that, I'll read from Mercola. That's why it's such a shock to see that Virginia and some other states are now requiring vaccinations for schools to even register for students to even register for school. Why should shots be mandated if school is totally online and conducted at home? All right, so here's where your name in all capitals becomes a player. Because online, going to school, public school, or doing it online, that's a benefit, that's a little present offered to you by the state, right? It's a benefit. So if you go to a physical school and the parent registers his child's all capital letters name to go to that school, then the government says, look, this is the school lunch, this is the vaccination program. As long as you come onto our premises, we're going to give you this. You're going to get our education. You cannot come to our school with your own books and make a disturbance in our classrooms. So online schooling is another state benefit. So if you register for whether it's physical school or online school, you're getting a state benefit. And the state is going to say, through that contract you made with us, you have to get vaccinated. This is how it works.
so it's best not to even register your kids anymore in school at all.
Right, and somebody very wise, very clever taught me. A lot of parents say, okay, we'll homeschool. But guess what? The state says, oh, you want to homeschool? We need to know that. You have to register your child for homeschooling. Through that registration, which is your child's legal fiction, corporate self, that you have now ensnared into a contract with a school, you as the guardian, because your kid is not 18, you ensnare your child into a mandated vaccination, even if you're homeschooling. Anytime you put your child's capital names down, capital letters name down by way of his short form birth certificate, this is it. You give birth in a hospital, usually, and the state gives you the mother, the long form birth certificate is very detailed, and the mother is called the informant. And then the state turns that page of information over to the county, where after 3 days, somebody told me there's some Masonic ritual they do, but who knows. After 3 days, the short form birth certificate is mailed to the parents. This is your child having been made into a corporate fiction with all capital letter name. And that's what the parents proudly present when they register the kid for school. I shouldn't say kid, child for school. Take him to have his whatever, health care visits, and follows the child through the rest of his life. And this is actually, if you really look at it in concrete terms, this is the dead, fictitious self. So even though it's the birth certificate, it's a certificate of being a dead self. And that's the self you interact with for the rest of your life. All capital letters on your driver's license, all capital letters on your insurance policy, all capital letters in the world of commerce and contracts. And that's how they're going to push the mandatory vaccines, through the contracts that we make with our capital letter name.
Okay, so the solution is to cancel all the contracts.
Well, you can fight those contracts because there hasn't been full disclosure. You need to understand all those terms. You need to understand anything that I'm made to do has to come with my signature. And I didn't sign this contract or execute this contract knowing that I would be vaccinated, knowing that I would be made to do this or that. It's not my job requirement. I'm in a workplace. Yes, I have a contract, a job contract with you that's terminate. You can terminate it at will, or I can leave at will. But my being here doesn't force me to submit to an invasion into my body, my biological, physical body, my bloodstream, my tissues, because that you don't control that. That's not part of my job duties or my job performance.
Well, I guess the solution to all of this would be wake up people in enormous amount numbers. If more and more people wake up fully to the entire agenda of where we came to, and reject all of this, cancel all the contracts, be self-sufficient, trade, create our own economy, never vote in another people to care for us, you know, because they all sold us out, Sophia. It doesn't matter what political, if you're on the left or right, it doesn't really matter. They're all sold out to this. So it's just it just needs a lot of education. So this is why we are here, telling people what's happening, hoping many people will listen to this program and then urge others to listen, because education is power. Knowing these things is power. Do you agree?
Jana, I would technically agree with that, but it all comes down to where people draw what their bottom line is.
Mm-hmm.
If you reject and resist, and you get to the point where you can't even eat, you cannot get food to eat. The fact is, I wrote a newsletter on this, you can survive for 3 months without food. But most people will not allow themselves to do that. And I am studying the Comanches. I've ordered my 4th book on the rise and fall of the Comanche Empire. And the Comanches rode the Great Plains. They were the Indians of the Southern Plains, and they were basically Stone Age people. And when they encountered the white man with his surveying instruments, his engineering, even though this was back in the 1800s and it's not anything like what we can do now in terms of technology, the persistence, the problem-solving abilities of white people compared to Stone Age people who never had the buffalo gave them everything they needed. There were 20,000 Comanches on the Great Plains of Texas and Oklahoma and southeastern Colorado, and that number went down to like 3,000 within not too many decades. And the Comanches surrendered when the buffalo were gone, and the buffalo hunters from the east came, and with the repeating rifles that were like small cannons that could shoot, 3/4 of a mile, half a mile away, kill a buffalo, drop it in its tracks. They were that powerful. There were buffalo hunters that killed, thousands of buffaloes a month.
Mm-hmm.
And they took the bison herds right off the Great Plains. And the Comanches and the other Indians who were free people who roamed the plains. Now I'm learning a lot about the Indians, the Plains Indians, and they were not as loving and wonderful as we think they were. They were very, very violent. They raided for the sake of raiding. They mutilated each other, the tribes. I mean, it's crazy. But they eventually surrendered. They came into the white forts in the 1870s, and they said, we just can't exist on the plain. There's no buffalo left. There's no food for us. The winters were very, very, very hard because they literally starved throughout the winters. They would set up camp, and they didn't hunt, and they lived on dried meat and pemmican and, whatever they could scrape up.
Mm-hmm.
So the winters were very hard, and in the end, they all came in to Fort Sill and these other forts, and they said, all right, give us the rations, give us the flour, give us the coffee, give us the federal beef, because there's nothing left for us out there. And that, to me, encapsulates what might happen in this development. Yeah, there are people who will retreat to their off-grid homes, but, as the environment is changed, and you can't hunt, and you can't grow anything because they control what falls out of the sky. They change the acidity of the soil all over the country, and they can play games with it
the
like
weather, Sophia. They have weather weapons.
Weather weapons.
Yes.
They change the way the land can produce food. They have technologized. Science has really taken over everything, and now it's invading our genome and our behavior. They figured out ways to do. So how long is it going to take for people to become, and will people become like the Comanches, where they'll trudge in to the Fort Sill and they'll say to the federal officers, all right, here it is. We're not going to go through this winter by ourselves on the Great Plains because we won't survive, but we'll survive here. So give us a teepee, put it by a creek on this reservation, and give us the rations.
Okay, Sophia, well, you gave us something to think about. I still want people to wake up to this agenda, not just go through the motion and think they're so patriotic that they have a mask on, you know?
Right, I want that too, Jana. I want people to be spirited about this. I want people to infect other people with the dawning that there's no virus that's going to be transmitted by wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. It's about teaching the artificial intelligence system to know who you are based on details that have nothing to do with your face. And they're going to keep this going for a long time so they can train their sensors. I mean, that to me is mind-blowing. I think
to me too.
My neighbors would want to know this.
Yes, so we need to spread the information and not comply, but in numbers, not just, I feel so alone where I am because I go out to Publix or I just went to post office and I'm telling you, everybody around me puts on masks. They're such a good little citizens and I'm like so lonely and now I'm all the only one, all among all of those sleeping people and I feel like screaming in the middle of a store. Wake up,
If they even let you in. I'm telling you, there are some stores that are so fascist, they won't let you in if you don't have on a mask. And I have made breathable cheesecloth masks for friends of mine, and I'm not selling them, but if you really want one, you can email me through my blog, sofiasmallstorm.com, or through Avatar Products. And just for a small donation, I'll make you one. And you want to hear what I did? I hope that my mail isn't interfered with now. But yesterday I ordered little tags, clothing labels, and like you would find in the collar of a shirt with the brand name, that kind of thing. They're very simple, and they say useless placebo. And I'm going to make my breathable masks for my friends, and it will have a tag on it right on the front that anybody can read that says useless placebo.
I like the little ways you have, Sophia, to not to, kind of, even if you have to comply to go into certain store, you will make a way how to let them know.
Exactly. We have to be impish, okay?
I know. This is just, to me, it's beyond what I can. I am slowly learning what this whole thing is, and I see that AI is the beast. It's that beast that wants our soul. They want to take our soul. And I don't want to give them my individuality, my soul. We are all created in the image of God, special, unique individuals, and we need to keep that. This is absolutely horrific what's going on. But anyway, can you tell us, Sophia, thank you for educating us, letting us know. I think at one point we spoke and I don't know if we spoke or we exchanged email, but you told me about, and I want to end the program, it's getting really late, but you told me about how it's going to go that actually they're harvesting our energy, that we're going to actually breathe for AI. Is that what you told me? Because you told me similar idea here, and I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, the piezoelectric, the conversion of our simplest movements, most basic movements. Our body is constantly moving. We're breathing, our chest heaves up and down, we have blood flow through our muscles. And if they put piezo nanowires, even like if you wear a pair of pants, when you walk, the pants rustle at your ankles, and if they put piezo nanowires on those pants, they'll convert that energy into millivolts AC, into alternating current. And it might be fed into a battery pack that you carry, and then you plug that into a generator in your house. But honestly, blockchains are not energy efficient. They use masses and masses of energy. And I think they're going to feed and fuel the blockchain with our most imperceptible movements. through piezo nanowires. That's another thing that could be lying there in the future. Um,
This is crazy.
it is
Anyway,
crazy, but listen, we have to be inventive. We have to think up creative ideas. We have to always be creative and keep educating everybody around us and saying this is not what you think it is. And even if we get shunned, that's why I think having useless placebo on the mask, people will see it. They don't have to say anything. It's like wearing a t-shirt, right?
mm-hmm.
With something written on it. But I want to hear from Steve. Oh, and I want to tell you, I have a new bumper sticker, and this is a promotion on my website, my store, Avatar, AVATAR, Avatar product. For every $10 you spend, you get a free bumper sticker. Last time we did a show, it was I Do Not Consent. This time, it's End the Masquerade, Maskerade.
Yes, and the masquerade, I saw it, and you have it on a blue background that looks like a mask.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
photo print, and it is
Mhm.
the blue mask background. So
Okay.
I'm excited. We made a lot of them. We got donations. You donated. Thank you, thank you. I'll send you some. And they're going out with orders. This time we have a maximum of 10 bumper stickers per order because we got a little carried away last time. But yeah, you'll get those. You can hand them to friends. You can put one in your window or your car or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, did you hear about those protests in Germany when million? I mean,
Yeah.
somebody says 1.3 million, but of course, in the media they didn't admit that. So many people came. They didn't social distance. They didn't wear masks. I heard just yesterday on Twitter, it was Spain, I think, another huge protest against masks and against social distancing and all these orders. So it seems like Europeans are waking up a little sooner than Americans are. It means like I think Americans are too docile.
Well, I don't know, Jana. I mean, I think it's great that they've had them in Europe. Maybe it'll catch on here. Maybe we'll have some protests also.
Yeah, I was
Um,
actually surprised that Europeans were leading in this, and Americans seem to be so docile and, complying with everything. And it's just so sickening to go to a store and see all these people and men in their prime, prime of life. With
well, there's going to be no accidental meeting. I mean, you can't look at somebody who has a mask on and say, oh, that's a cute guy, or, oh, I'll ask her out. Or, I mean, this is gone.
I
You're not
know.
allowed to sit at bars and chat with each other and drink late into the night. And they don't want people who don't know each other to make contact and have conversations.
I know that. They're basically transforming everything we knew until now as life and relationships. They're transforming us into mindless slaves. Well, this is something people have to wake up to, and maybe we can stop this somehow. Well, Sophia, but thank you. It's getting late. I have to end this program. So quickly, let's just go. You have two websites, SophiaSmallstorm.com, and I put this in link, and AvatarProducts.com. I know that you have a lot of good products on your site that I have used and we still use. One of the products being Restore. That's something I talked about before that Steve has very good really good
Effects.
yes, effects. Thank you for the word, Stephen. It really helps him with he has a gluten intolerance, and this product helped him tremendously. In fact, I got an email yesterday, one lady who watched our program, Sofia, where I recommended this product, and she wants to know more, so I'm gonna forward it to you. But she wants to know more because she has gluten allergies, and she heard on our program that this product is really good for that, to clear the gluten out of body. Am I correct?
Yes, because the gluten, when it's made with glyphosate instead of glycine, the amino acid glycine,
Right.
it becomes problematic in the body. So that's why people get gluten intolerance. It's not the gluten, it's one of the component amino acids Gluten is a protein.
Yes, it
So
is. But what people say gluten because, like you said, is that glyphosate replaces, right? Replace
glycine in gluten.
glycine,
Yes.
right?
So what Restore does is it closes your gut wall against leakage.
Mm-hmm.
When your gut senses a bad thing coming in, an invader of some kind, which it believes glyphosate to be, it'll open the gut wall and start drawing water from the bloodstream so it can flush this thing out. So if your gut wall is closed, then you don't have leaky gut. Leaky gut creates autoimmune conditions and all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, gluten with glyphosate, you really have to eliminate glyphosate. You have to start eating foods that are not sprayed with glyphosate to dry in the fields. Glyphosate is not just a weed killer, it is a drying agent. It's called a desiccant in farming, and it's used on all the core crops. But you might want to forward her the show that we did on glyphosate,
Yeah.
or I can forward her another one that I did. But yeah, Jana, thank you. You've always been a big supporter of the stuff that I sell, all of which I've stumbled upon myself or someone has reached out to me. There's a laundry Castile soap laundry powder that we sell that's absolutely amazing, and you can sprinkle it in your sinks. You can clean anything with it. You can use it in place of Comet or Ajax. It's fantastic. It's just a tablespoon in your laundry makes your clothes smell so good and cleans them so well. And my friend Christine makes that laundry powder. We just got a big shipment of it. So she's also got a wonderful oxygen-based bleach that she's sending me. That's not bleach, but it's a whatever. I don't know what you call it. Bleach substitute. And I'm going to start trying that and carrying more of her line because it just smells so good when you use it.
Yes,
and
it
we
does.
have to make ourselves feel better and be cleaner inside, and then we can deal with these quandaries better.
Yes, and you did send me a little bit of that soap before as a gift, and it was really really nice laundry detergent to use. I really liked it, and then I also like your iodine, and I am using it. My family is using iodine. We use it for an energy.
Yes.
You better thinking, healthier energy.
Yes.
You feel like you're more energized when you have enough iodine in your body. So all of those products, again, you can find on avatarproducts.com. It is sofiasmallstorm.com. I saw that you have some videos in there. You put videos. I just saw this lady, cabin talk lady.
Yes.
I found her on your website, and then I signed up and subscribed to her channel. That's another awakened individual. I really like her.
Yes, and Peggy Hall, she's doing amazing work in Orange County against the mask mandate. I'm going to put a video up that she released today where, these restaurants with these outdoor patios, they're not even using their patios. They're making people sit in the street in parking spots that they've corralled off with crappy fencing. Where cars are driving by, you get exhaust fumes, and you're supposed to be safer and cleaner out there on the street eating on the street than eating in the patio that the restaurant already has outdoors.
That's what I'm talking about. They're making us do. Maybe they're already betting on us. Like, let's see how many people are gonna do this crazy stuff, and they're doing it, and they're doing it. They're having fun, with us.
Exactly. They are predicting what we're going to do and what we aren't going to do. And the restaurant owners are simply going along with this suggestion, because that's all these things are, suggestions. There's no legislation, there's no law that restaurants can't serve food indoors. They have to serve it on the street, for God's sake.
I
right?
know. Yes. Well, they would change. They would change if nobody went there and said, "No, we are not going to serve. You're not going to serve us this way." But
you're not going to serve us on the street, protected from the cars by a bamboo fence.
Yes, but people, it's the problem of the people who still want the service. They so want that food. I'd rather go home and make my own food than sit that way. But it's just, we have got to awaken people to this. Anyway, Sofia, thank you so much for coming on today, explaining to us details of these vaccines. It's horrific. I'm not going to take the vaccine voluntarily. They're going to have to hold me. If they're going to, there is no way I will take this voluntarily in any. There is just not a chance. You know what
Well, don't give them any ideas and ask that raccoonologist sitting next to you to help you.
I mean? He will help
Now
me.
he's
He's
going to
planning
have to
on
explain
protecting
that
me.
to the audience.
Yeah, he said no vaccines for our family, and he's gonna protect me with his big muscles he's got.
After I fill him with some air.
Anyway, well, thank you. We should end this. Thank you for listening, and we are going to bring Sofia on as she's studying and researching more in depth about these vaccines and other issues like AI. And thank you again, Sofia, for coming on, and we will, guys, talk to you soon.